Good afternoon, everybody. We want to welcome you all to another one of our rules webinar series for 2026. My name is Amanda Kelly. I'm a manager of championships and golf operations for the VSGA. We also have Kent Hollabar on here, director of championships and junior golf. We're going to be your instructors for today. Again, we want to welcome everybody to the first week of this series. This is the first of 3 weeks. We'll be discussing different topics and different rules as we go on each week. You should have an outline of topics of the rules that we're going to cover each week. The schedule is on our website for anybody that doesn't have it immediately. And we will have both noon and the 6 o'clock classes are going to be the same information covered. So don't feel like you have to attend both sessions each week. And if you do have to miss a week, or you would like to view the material again, we will be posting one of the recordings from each week on our website the next business day. So it will be available to you to rewatch for anything you may have missed or just want to review again. As well as we will post the PDF slides from each week's presentation for anyone who maybe just wants to review some information on the slides and not necessarily rewatch the videos. Those will be available as well with other rules resources that we have on our website, vsga.org. We do like this to be an interactive session, so we encourage you, if you have any questions throughout the session, to please use the question and answer tab. I believe it's at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions, just type your questions in there and we will go over them as we hit our question breaks through each section. And if we don't get to your question during this hour-long class, we will respond to you one-on-one, but we will make sure that we answer as many questions as we can. And lastly, before we get started, for any PGA professional members that are in this webinar, please submit your member number to the question and answer section as well, and we will pass that on to the MAPGA so that we make sure you're getting credit for sitting in on these seminars. All right, Kent, are you ready to start?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, appreciate the introduction and the housekeeping items. We're excited to dive back into this virtual series, like Amanda said, offering these two per day. You know that the warm weather is coming around and golf season's on the horizon when we start talking about the rules a little bit more. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. And we'll hit a few question slides, like Amanda said, so it'll be a good stopping point. All right. There we go. Here's what we're going to try to touch on today. We've got about an hour, so we'll see, how steady we can get through each section here. So forms of play, parts of the golf course, which is going to be a great thing to really focus in on as you try to figure out which rule applies and where your ball lies on the golf course, and then play the course as you find it, which I think, as we should know, is one of the most basic premises of the game of golf and the rules. All right, introduction to the game of golf. What is golf? I mean, it's very simple, basic concept, a series of strokes with a club from a teeing area into the hole. Repeating the process on 18 or fewer holes, depending on the length of the round set by the committee. We know, the junior golf circuit that we oversee offers even 9-hole events. So the 18 or fewer rounds or 18 or fewer holes here definitely makes sense. What is the why behind the rules? There are two fundamental principles that guide the rules of the game and how it's played, which will be repeated throughout. You must play the course as you find it and must play the ball as it lies. This means you have to accept a bad lie as long with the good ones. You don't always get to change your situation just because you don't like it. There'll be times when you get to alter certain conditions or play the ball from somewhere else, but those circumstances are the exceptions and not the rules. So, two great pictures here. You've hit a great drive down the middle of the fairway, but it happens to come to rest in a divot from maybe the group in front of you or the previous day, or you hit not such a great shot, a little off course, but you find yourself on perched up in a nice tuft of grass in the rough. So got to take the good with the bad sometimes. How are the rules structured? We love the game of golf and we watch other sports on TV. Hopefully, we know that golf is different than most. Everything seems to be changing from hole to hole, maybe shot to shot with the weather. But in most sports, players are trying their best to gain every possible advantage over another player or team in an attempt to get away with breaches of the rules. Gamesmanship and other tactics are expected. Referees are not really necessary, not just to assist, but uh, I'm sorry, referees are necessary, not just to assist, but specifically to enforce and call the penalties. And we know golf's a bit different. You're expected to follow the rules, apply your own penalties. You're expected to show consideration for others by not attempting to deliberately distract them. And it's your responsibility to help take care of the course. I mean, can you imagine if football players were expected to repair the damage created on the field by their play? A committee can even decide upon an even higher standard of conduct by implementing its own code of conduct. This should include stroke penalties for foul language and other behaviors that are just not in the spirit of the game. These are five great examples of just different golf holes. We're going to learn about, where your ball lies, like I mentioned before. But picture one, hardly any trees. I'm sure some of those bushes in that desert area become a factor if you hit it offline. But no fairway bunkers as compared to, picture two or picture four. I mean, tree-lined fairways or bunkers galore. Picture three, a famous hole at TPC Sawgrass, carrying it all over water, or Pebble Beach in the last picture, maybe having to limit your drive and then carry a long second shot or choosing to lay up. So challenges all the time with different holes. And like I said before, shot to shot, maybe the wind's blowing and then lays down. All right, so I think we touched on kind of the spirit of the game there, but just so you can see it again, we're acting with integrity. The rules are a responsibility of the player, responsibility for the player themselves to apply penalties and to let their playing partners know that they incurred a penalty. It's a game of honest and sportsmanship. Um, you know, Considering pace of play for the groups behind you, not taking your time, trying to finish at a respectable pace, looking out for others, and being aware where everyone else is before you hit, so you're not endangering anyone else. And taking good care of the course, fixing your ball marks when you're on the green and raking the bunkers after you're done playing from them. There's a lot of awesome resources out there for the rules, and I feel like they're just getting better and better. There are two physical rules publications that anyone learning the rules should know about. The Rules of Golf is the one on the far left. It's a full text of the rules, including definitions, rules, subsections. This book has an index to assist you in finding the correct rule more quickly. But then for someone looking to dive into the rules a little bit more, the next image, the official guide to the rules of golf, contains everything that the actual rules of golf book does, but it also contains the clarifications, formerly known as interpretations, and the committee procedures, which has model local rules and recommendations for committees and running tournaments. But you can also access some digital versions. On the far right is the Rules of Golf app. That's what I think continually gets better and better. Anyone who's interested in the rules would benefit from having a rule book available at the touch of a button or on the mobile device at any time. It has a search feature to quickly find whatever rule or topic you're looking for. The Rules of Golf app is completely free and available on Apple or Android devices. You can turn on the expert mode in the app setting to make sure that clarifications and the official guide are available as well. The app is fully updated when the digital clarifications are added quarterly. Uh, Additional clarifications with the USG and R&A that will publish quarterly as needed to address questions or issues with the rules more frequently than the quadrennial revisions. These will be numbered like printed clarifications and will be placed in that position in the Rules of Golf app and online. So then the middle image is what you're seeing if you're going to access the Rules of Golf webpage from the USGA website. The rules homepage, which is simply just www.usga.org/rules, has all the applicable links to the rules of golf, the official guide, clarifications, equipment rules, and the rules of amateur status. It also has lots of helpful links to documents and resources to help us studying and learning the rules. This includes specific topic overviews, the Rules of Golf Explained video series, information on the Rules of Golf workshops, educational programming, and even the history of the rules. So when we actually are getting into using the rules book, or the app, however you're choosing to access it, like any code with specific applications, there's a certain best practices and recommendations to follow to make sure that you use the rule book properly and you're getting to the right answer. I think the first thing would be to identify the form of play. Maybe more times than not, I can assume that maybe we're playing stroke play. So when making a ruling or answering a question on the rules, knowing whether it's match play or stroke play, and then whether it's individual or partner play, or even a team competition can make all the difference. The rules provide different answers in many situations for different forms of play. Next would be the who, what, where, when, or why. These are all basic questions to go through to get to the bottom of the rule situation. Who and whose ball is involved? Did the player act, or did someone else, or was someone else the actor? What happened? Did the ball move? Did it go into a penalty area? Was it deflected while in motion? What is the occurrence you're trying to resolve? And then where did it happen? Where on the course did the ball come to rest, or did the situation take place? This may determine whether the ball is dropped, placed, or if a stroke does not count. When did the action happen? Before the 3-minute search time elapsed? After the 3-minute search time elapsed? While the ball was in motion? After the ball came to rest? When a certain action occurs could make all the difference. And then why did the person act? There are outcome-based rules and there are intent-based rules. It is important to find out why a player or person took specific action to determine whether it was an accidental or deliberate act. For some rules, this won't matter, but in many cases it will. We try to tell people to start with the definitions. In many rulings, the answer to the question at hand can be found directly from the definitions without even getting into the rules. For example, am I allowed free relief from a boundary fence? Well, looking up the definition of boundary object will answer the question that no, you are not. Then let's go into the rule itself. Knowing the applicable definitions is the first step, and even if that does not answer the question, next find the rule that best applies for the situation. So for example, my ball's on a cart path. What do I do? Well, looking at the cart path, we know that that is an immovable obstruction, which is defined as an abnormal course condition. So we can go to Rule 16.1 for the relief of an abnormal course condition. Then if you're still unclear, let's dive a little bit further and check for the clarifications. You should be able to make any ruling from the rules alone, but there are plenty of instances where the rules are subject to interpretation, and the interpretations have been provided to guide you into the intended meaning. For example, the definition of improve means to alter one of the conditions affecting the stroke or conditions affecting play so that the player gains a potential advantage for a stroke. What is a potential advantage? Rather than specifically state situation by situation what is and what is not a potential advantage, a task that would never be complete with an infinite number of possibilities, situations, or possible situations on a golf course, interpretations 8.1a/1 and 8.1a/2 give some examples of what kinds of improvements or would not create a potential advantage. And then lastly, just asking for help. So for your everyday play, ask the club professional at the course might be the best option. It may be a situation that occurs regularly at the course, but in a tournament, if you're a player, ask a referee or the committee to help. That's what they're there for. So in VSGA competitions, we're going to have as many rules officials as we think can cover the golf course to to be available to several groups at a time or several different holes at a time. All right, here's our first stopping point. Amanda, do we have any early questions?
No early questions, Kent. Just a reminder, I've already had a fair number of you submit your PGA numbers, which we appreciate. But if anybody missed that message at the beginning, if you are a PGA member in this seminar, please submit your PGA member number in the question and answer section so we can send it to the MAPGA to make sure you get credit for sitting in on this. But no other questions at this time, Kent.
Okay, sounds great. All right, next up is the forms of play. All right, so you see three different types or kinds of penalties in the rules of golf, all designed to cancel out any potential advantage a player might gain by breaking a rule. First, the one-stroke penalty. For more minor infractions where the potential advantage is minimal, or the toll for most penalty relief situations. Next is what we would just have a blanket statement calling the general penalty. So this could be a loss of hole in match play or two strokes in stroke play. For the majority of rules infractions where there's a potential for the player to gain a significant advantage, but not enough that it would nullify the player's score. And then finally, disqualification, something that we never want to see, but these are for breaches that are so significant that the player's score should not be allowed to count. This also applies when a player's actions are so against the spirit of the game that the player should be removed from the competition. All right, so comparing match play and stroke play. One of the supporting principles of the rules of golf is that golf is divided into two parts, match play like we see on the left and stroke play like we see in the column on the right. The competitions for each form of play are so different that the rules must be applied differently. There are even situations that the rule in a penalty stroke, but no penalty in match play. I'm sorry, a penalty in stroke play, but no penalty in match play. So starting out with match play on the left, since it comes first in the rules of golf, was the original format of golf and could be thought of as the head-to-head competition. In match play, the competition is solely between two players or two sides in a partner format, and everyone who has direct interest in the outcome of the match is present or can be present to protect their own interests. Because of this, players in match play are actually allowed to overlook breaches of the rules so long as there is no agreement to ignore a rule or apply a penalty. This can't be done in stroke play because all the players are playing against each other and need to be consistent of the rules. And we can kind of see that in the first bullet point, playing against an opponent versus playing against the entire field. There are some other unique components in match play. A match is played by holes, and in essence, is a series of 18 or sometimes fewer mini competitions that can be won, lost, or tied. We see all the time matches end early with a score of 4-3, 4 up with 3 to play. Since the competition is only between two sides, you may concede a match or the next stroke to your opponent. You don't necessarily need to hole out on each hole. The order of play is so important and must be observed. If you play out of turn, your opponent can cancel your stroke and make you play again in the correct order. The player furthest from the hole must play first. You can decide rules issues on your own with your opponent. You can't agree to ignore a rule or penalty, but you can make your own determinations with an opponent about how to proceed, even if you later find out it was wrong. So going on to stroke play, it came along long later in the history of golf as a format designed to allow players to play against a large group of players, also known as the field, like we said in the first bullet point, and who may or may not be present to protect their own interests. You compete based on the total score for each hole in each round of the competition, and the winner is the player who takes the fewest total strokes. Because there are more players than just your own group that have an interest in how you play, there are additional requirements to make sure everyone plays to the same standard. So unlike match play where you did not have to hole out, stroke play, you must hole out. In order to have a score that compares to the players, concessions are not allowed. There is a scorecard. So in match play, you and your opponent just need to agree on the match score uh, to make sure that the result is final to get the result to the committee. In stroke play, you're responsible for the accuracy of your hole-by-hole scores and certifying your scorecard, including making sure that your marker has certified the scorecard as well. There are certain rule breaches that must be corrected, and if not done in time, will lead to disqualification because you must have a score for each hole. Certain breaches, such as playing a wrong ball or playing from outside the teeing area, must be corrected before starting another hole, or in the case of the last hole of the round, before returning your scorecard. Uh, Rules issues cannot be decided by agreement. If you aren't sure how to proceed, you can always play a second ball and let the committee decide which ball is to count before returning your scorecard. We see this from time to time in VSJ competitions where an area of ground under repair may not have been marked, may have been accidentally overlooked, and a player finds themselves kind of off the beaten path and will choose to take relief and play two balls, one with relief and one without. In both match play and stroke play, there are some alternate forms in which rules can be adapted, including a Stableford, maximum score, or par bogey in stroke play, as well as three ball in match play. There are also modifications to the rules for players with disabilities back in Rule 25 that allow golfers to compete, including allowing an additional aid for blind golfers, equipment modifications, and other considerations really relating to putting a ball into play. So as we look back and forth on match play and stroke play, I think we can see the differences in the two forms of play. All right, different ways that players can compete. In individual play, one person is going to play against other individuals. This could be as a singles match or individual stroke play. Rules 1 through 20 of the rules of golf are written specifically just for that individual play. Partner play, it's a side of two or more partners that can play against another side. This most common form of partner play is either foursomes or four ball. In foursomes, you and your partner play a single ball and alternate strokes on each teeing area during the hole. In four ball, you and your partner each play your own ball and count the best score on each hole. In a team competition, you could have a group of players that are playing either as individuals or as partners, and you compete against other teams. The committee in charge of the competition determines exactly how the teams compete against each other, including how many individual scores count or how many points a match is worth. So in case of the team picture at the bottom, there's 5 girls on that team, only 4 scores might count. All right, let's get into the different parts of the course, which we highlighted in one of the earlier slides that would be easy to determine where your ball lies to get to the appropriate rule. So it's a place where you play the game of golf, obviously. It's everything within any boundaries that may be in place and is split into 5 distinct areas. The teeing area, bunkers, penalty areas, the putting green, and general area. So let's just start at the teeing area. It's a starting place for the hole being played. I will highlight the words hole being played. Therefore, in any given hole, there's only one teeing area at a time. To bunkers, these are areas that have been hollowed out and then filled with sand or similar material. Sometimes y'all refer to them as sand traps. These are considered a less penal area than actual penalty areas, but do have special restrictions regarding touching the sand before a stroke. Penalty areas, we see 2 on this hole that are painted red. These include any sea, lake, pond, ditch, maybe a surface drainage ditch, or other open area that water flows, whether or not there's actually containing water at the time or any other defined such by the committee. Penalty areas are further split into yellow and red, and the color determines which relief option are available to you when your ball is in the penalty area. Next, the putting green. It's a place on the hole that the hole being played. So again, I'll highlight that the hole being played, specifically prepared for putting where the hole is placed. On any given hole, there's only one putting green at a time. Practice putting greens and greens of holes not being played are considered wrong greens, and they'd be a part of the general area. So then next for the general area, it's kind of a catch-all term that encompasses everything except the other four areas that we touched on. The general area will include fairway, rough, maybe some sandy areas that are not bunkers, pine straw, desert like we saw in one of the earlier pictures, or forests like we saw in the other earlier pictures too. Anything on the course is in the general area, other than bunkers, penalty areas, and the teen area and putting green of the hole you are playing. Next, there's actually another area that we like to throw out there, which is out of bounds. It's not actually part of the course, but specifically everything not on the course. It is important to know what areas are out of bounds because you cannot play your ball from there. All right, this is kind of a cool table. It looks like a lot of information initially until we kind of touch on each. So we'll just kind of go down the list. But like we said before, knowing which area on the course your ball lies is important in determining the options available for a player. For example, if your ball lies in a penalty area, you won't be allowed to take free relief from an abnormal course condition. But to know where the ball lies, you need to know how each area of the course is actually defined. So, teen area, it's the rectangular area that is 2 club lengths in depth, measured from the outermost and front edges of the tee markers. The width is determined by the placement of the tee markers. Your ball is considered in the teen area when any part of it touches the teen area or is above any part of the teen area when on a tee, for example. So just imagine it hovering over that imaginary edge. Next, the putting green. A place specially prepared for putting. It's typically the shortest cut of grass on the course and is fairly distinct. There are rare occasions with sand courses, if you all have played those, that define sandy areas as putting greens. The putting green does not have edges that extend upward and downward like you might see in a penalty area. So that your ball actually needs to be touching the putting green in order for us to determine that it is on the putting green. Most bunkers are easily defined by the edges of the turf surrounding the bunker. Non-grass covered walls and grass covered areas bordering or within the bunker are considered not part of the bunker. Your ball is in the bunker when any part of it touches the sand, or actually where sand would be. Maybe there was a rainstorm that came through and washed out some areas. Or if it lies on top of something in the sand, could be a bag or a piece of trash. If your ball overhangs a bunker but does not touch the sand, it is actually not in the bunker. Next, penalty areas. Penalty areas are defined by stakes, lines, or physical features. When only stakes are used, the outermost edge of the stakes at ground level define the edge of the area. When lines, or in VSJ competitions, both stakes and lines are used, the lines are what define the edge. Penalty area edges extend vertically upward and downward. So if your ball lies in a branch overhanging a penalty area, it is considered in the penalty area. Additionally, penalty areas can be defined as yellow or red. All right, next to the general area, it's one of the hardest areas to define because it is everywhere other than defined area on the course is not. A ball is in the general area when no part of the ball touches another area of the course, but is still in bounds. And then out of bounds. It can be defined by a number of different features: stakes, lines, fences, walls, buildings, pavement, the list goes on. Usually it's clarified on the notice to players or on the course local rules if there's an out of bounds and how it is defined. If stakes or lines are used, they're typically white And just like penalty areas, if lines are used, the line itself is going to define the boundary edge. But if only stakes are used, it's the course side edge of the stakes at ground level that define the edge. The out of bounds edge also extends upward and downward, but a ball has to be completely beyond the edge before it is considered out of bounds. If any part of the ball is touching the course, whether on the ground or overhanging in a tree, then it is not out of bounds. And in some occasions, a ball can touch more than one area of the course. If a ball touches the general area and one of the other four that we talked about, the teen area, the bunker, the penalty area, or putting green, the ball lies in the specific area and not the general area. So, for example, if the ball touches multiple areas of specific areas and it lies on the area of the course in this particular order, penalty area, then bunker, then putting green. And that's laid out in the rules book too. All right. This kind of looks like a lot of information as well, but each area of the golf course are going to have some more favorable situations down to the least favorable. So we'll just kind of try to touch on each. The teen area is considered probably the most favorable area of the course. One reason for this is generally the ball's not in play yet, so you have the most leeway of what can be done. You can tee the ball in various ways and or cut some slack if you accidentally knock the ball off the tee. On some areas of the course, you cannot remove dew and frost to create or eliminate irregularities of surface. However, those restrictions don't apply when the ball is in the teen area. The putting green is the next highly favored area of the course. It's the most highly prepared surface with the least amount of forgiveness for the final target, which is ultimately the hole. There are a number of different or a number of specific permissions, including the ability to mark and lift your ball when it is on the putting green and clean it or repair damage to the green. There's no penalty for accidentally moving the ball or ball marker on the putting green. And while sand and loose soil are not considered loose impediments, you have specific permission to remove sand or loose soil when it is actually on the putting green. Line of play relief is allowed in addition to physical interference from an abnormal course condition that are on or off the putting green. Being on the putting green does come with some restrictions, as you may not deliberately test the surface of the green by rubbing the surface or rolling a ball, except on the last putting green played when you are between two holes. The general area is the middle of the favorability scale, as we see on the slide. It's treated better than bunkers and penalty areas, but there's not as much leeway as on the putting green. There is a penalty for accidentally moving your ball, including while moving loose impediments. The exception for moving a movable obstruction while trying to find the ball, though. You can't improve your conditions affecting the stroke, like your lie, your area of intended swing, the line of play, or relief area by various means, and are otherwise allowed in the teen area and on the putting green. Free relief is allowed for physical interference from an abnormal course condition and dangerous animal conditions, but not for lie of play intervention. Next, bunkers. They can still be a penal area, but they're considered a slightly better place than to be in a penalty area. You're not allowed to touch sand in the bunker, but before making a stroke to test the condition and making a practice swing, making your backswing for the stroke, or in the area right near the ball. Free relief will be allowed for physical interference from an abnormal course condition and dangerous animal conditions, but relief without penalty must stay within the bunker. You may still declare the ball unplayable in the bunker, but relief must be taken inside the bunker, except when proceeding under a stroke in distance, which is the previous spot outside the bunker that you played from, or when using the option to take the back on the line relief option outside the bunker for 2 total strokes. Penalty areas are about the harshest place your ball can end up that is located on the course. Free relief is not going to be allowed for interference by an abnormal course condition or an embedded ball if your ball is in the penalty area. You may not treat your ball as unplayable in a penalty area, but you must use the options provided for or for relief, from the penalty area. The only options to get out of the penalty area will cost one stroke to use. That's a lot of information there to cover areas of the course and then the boundaries. But are there any questions, Amanda?
Yeah, we have a few questions here. The first one is going back to mainly stroke play versus match play forms of play. They were asking, in match play specifically, if player A wins the match 3-2 against player B, do they have to sign that scorecard to make it official? And the answer is no. Scorecards are not needed in match play. They're mainly used to just help keep a reminder of what the status of the match is throughout the match. But there's no official need to sign the scorecard like there is in stroke play. The next question is asking in stroke play if you play two balls, or you would like to play two balls because you're not sure if your first ball is in a specific area where you could potentially get relief from. Is it necessary to declare the ball in play before you play either ball? The answer is yes there. If you decide that you would like to play two balls in a situation where you think you may get relief for where your ball lies, you must declare that before you play either ball, and you must also declare which ball you would like to count, whether it's ball one or ball two, whichever one is relief and whichever one is played as lies. And then you are responsible as well to bring that up in the scoring area when you are done to settle the situation and to make sure that the right ball is counted towards your score at the end of your match. The next question was about dual putting greens. And I think this was along the lines of, if you are playing a golf course where they have a dual putting green, can you use the whole putting green or is there a boundary line there? I know in the cases of, we have a few courses in Virginia that we use for our competitions that are dual putting greens. And in all of my cases I've run into, they have a stake, kind of midway through the putting green that is the marker. So if you're playing one of the holes and your ball goes past that stake, then it's considered off the putting green. But other courses may not have it, and then you just treat the entire green as one green. So it does depend on how the course has it set up. And then the last one was somebody was asking is the fringe around the putting green considered part of the general area? Yes, it is, and that's why it's very important for you. If you think your ball is on the putting green, as Ken stated, your ball has to be touching part of the putting green to be considered on the green. If you think it's touching the green, but it's mainly mostly on the fringe, that's why it's important for you to ask your playing competitors their thoughts to figure out if you're on the fringe or if you're on the putting green, because depending on where your ball lies, you can do things to your ball, such as marking it or lifting it, if it were to be on the putting green. So it does matter if your ball is in the fringe or on the putting green because they are not part of the same area of the golf course. Those are some really good questions. Please continue to submit them through our next section, and we will answer them as they come in.
Yeah, those were some good questions. Appreciate that. All right. Basic premise. Course played as it's found. The conditions affecting the stroke, or as we like to say, the cats, um, are things that you use in every stroke that you make when you play. The cats are a defined term, but each word here that is underlined and italicized is also a defined term. So the lie of the player's ball at rest, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. The area of intended stance, so you see the player in picture two, the highlighted area in yellow includes his feet, but it also includes the body position in that stance. The third picture, the area of intended swing, highlighted in with this in a yellow dotted circle there. because it includes not only the backswing and the downward motion of this swing, but it also includes the follow through. The line of play in the next photo, it's not just a direct line. It's where we want the ball to go and a reasonable area on either side. We all know where we want our ball to go, but it doesn't always go right on line. And then lastly, in the white dotted shaded area of the last picture is the relief area where the player will end up dropping or placing a ball. Uh, and sometimes this might be a different shape than what's shown there. Definition of improve. It's another golf definition that is slightly different than Webster's dictionary. It means to alter one or more of the conditions affecting the stroke or other physical conditions affecting play so that a player gains a potential advantage for a stroke. 8.1a/1 and 8.1a/2 could help explain what it means to create or gain a potential advantage. An example could be, I've got a divot that is several yards in front of my ball, and I hit a 200-yard shot versus a divot right in front of my ball, and I'm going to putt from off the green. If I replace the divot, which is more likely to have an effect on my shot? Here's some allowed actions. Most or all of these are what can be considered reasonable. Just fairly searching for your ball. This guy in high grass just trying to kind of go through there and find if that's his mark and brand a ball. Removing movable obstructions, removing movable objects, loose impediments, which is the leaf in the middle picture, or movable obstructions, which is the rake in the far right picture. Mark, lift, and replace the ball. Ground your club lightly so that only the weight of the club is supported by the ground. And then firmly place your feet to take a stance, or as in the bottom right picture, fairly taking a stance. It's taking a stance in a tree within reason. He didn't just hook the tree branch under his arm, but he backed into the tree with reason. So I think we could have seen that in the previous picture. That girl was getting ready to move that branch behind her back. All right, some more allowed actions. Making a stroke, which is going to include the backswing. Maybe a ball is in a tree and I have a limited backswing. So think about, if I make my backswing, I break several branches in doing so, but I complete my swing, I'm going to be okay. But if I make my backswing, break several branches, and then I get a little scared and nervous and I stop my backswing, well, now I've created an advantage because now I've broken some things that if I take my swing again, I'm not going to have a problem with. Making improvements to the teen area. The top picture shown there is Laura Davies on the tee, where she uses her driver to raise up an area of turf and then uses that turf as a tee. In the bottom picture, smoothing sand in a bunker after playing from it. Take that very literal. Your ball is in a bunker and you play from the bunker, which could be forward, backwards, or to the side. You can smooth that sand without restriction, even if the next stroke would include going over the bunker. So you've played out of the bunker, you're completely out of it. Now you can smooth the areas. Making certain improvements to the putting green, like tapping down spike marks, removing sand and loose soil, or fixing ball marks. Move a natural object to see if it's loose. If it's loose and not attached, then go ahead and move it. But if you find that it is attached, you need to put the object back to its normal state. So think about a divot that might be folded over and not completely loose. All right, let's talk about some prohibited actions that could be fixable or not fixable. And we're actually going to start with the not fixable ones. altering the surface of the ground. It's impossible to restore how it actually was. Removing or pressing down sand or loose soil, again, you can't put that back in its exact spot. And then removing frost, dew, or water, you can't put it back. Uh, Back to fixable, uh, putting the object back in its same spot or position to avoid the penalty. Moving, bending, or breaking any fixed natural object, moving an object, moving a movable object into place, as the picture shows on the left, moving this bench into that position to make the stroke. If this player moved the bench to make the stroke, then puts the bench back, um, he's going to avoid penalty. But if the bench was already there, he's going to get a little lucky. So yeah, don't be moving the bench into this 6 foot high tree just to try to gain this advantage. All right, so how do you fix some of these? By restoring the object back to its original position. So the boundary stake, putting it back, the girl that's about to hook this tree branch around her back, don't take the stroke, put the tree branch back, try to back into it reasonably. Or this player that's moved the bench before making the stroke, put that bench back. So moving it back to its original position. Are there any other questions on this last part?
Yeah, we have a couple questions
Okay,
regarding
awesome.
this section and then a couple that were follows up from the previous section. So I'll kind of go through them here. So the first one is asking about a backswing. So if you in the backswing, if you break branches and then but stop your backswing, what is the penalty for swinging again, or what do you do next? So if you if you're in your backswing, but you obviously you break a branch, but you are able to stop. So you're as to say you're not making a stroke at that ball. That stroke doesn't count, but unfortunately, breaking the branches, you can't, as Kent just kind of stated, you can't put those branches back. So you would still incur that penalty for breaking the branches. It honestly almost would have been better if you would just continue the swing and hit the ball. Um, because now if once you go back to hit the ball, you've changed that those branches are gone and you've changed that area of your swing. The next one is somebody was asking for a little bit more explanation on for line of play relief from abnormal course conditions on the putting green. Um, It is the only place where line of play relief does apply from abnormal course condition on the putting green. So the best example we use usually is there's a puddle of water standing between your ball and the putting green and the hole. And from where your ball sits, you have to putt. You would have to putt through that puddle of water to get to the hole. Obviously, that puddle of water is considered an abnormal course condition on the putting green. So then you would figure out where your complete nearest point of complete relief is. And it can either be on the putting green or it can go back into the general area. If that's the nearest point of complete relief, then you would simply place the ball in that spot and move on. And another question was the two-stroke penalty for out of bounds. So the local rule. This is a big one to help with pace of play. So what the local rule states is that if you hit your ball out of bounds, you find where the point that it crossed out of bounds, your ball last crossed to go out of bounds. And we always advise people to kind of shoot. If you can see the flag, shoot the flag from there to know what your yardage is. And then you walk out to the fairway and shoot the flag again to make sure you're at the same yardage. So once you step into the fairway, get that same yardage you shoot, and then you get 2 club lengths more into the fairway, and then you have the entire space from there to where you cross out of bounds and going backwards to drop your ball and play. But it does give you that two-stroke penalty as instead of going back and just taking the one stroke penalty for stroke and distance. But it does help with pace of play as well. I think Kent, was that your last that was the last section, correct?
That was the last section. Yeah, I was just going to add with that model local rule for lost ball or out of bounds. I would just look to your home club on whether you guys are playing by that rule or even a competition. We do not use that in any of our junior golf circuit events, any of our qualifiers or championships. It would not really be intended for a higher level competition. Might just be best used as like casually amongst your group or at the club level.
Yeah. So again, we appreciate everybody's questions. I'll let Kent cover what's coming up next week, but we will stay on for a few extra minutes. So if you have any more questions, we'll stay on to answer them.
Yeah, coming up next week, you can see it on your screen here. I hope you all will tune in. We've got a lot of knowledgeable staff members and excited to continue this series. Um, I'd also like to throw out just different helpful videos, additional resources. There's a Rules 101 for those more beginner individuals out there. There's Virtual Rules School that might have USGA videos, and then a website that is great for kind of just getting in there with more quizzes or more resources could be the Roving official website. Um, I think it's great just how it breaks up each section. But yeah, we'll be back at 6 o'clock with this again. So if you'd like to tune in then, that's great. If not, we hope to see you next week.